Welcome to the Unbox Your Gift podcast. As you've heard, guys, I am with Samea Zarifi. And the reason why I've asked her to come on is because the situation in Afghanistan is what it is. The Taliban have the Americans left yesterday. It's left Afghanistan in a very desperate situation. They've been in a desperate situation for more than 40 years, but much more so than ever before. And I've asked Samea to come on because she's one of the charities that's on the ground in Afghanistan. She herself is living in Australia, but I've asked her to come because I want to be able to demonstrate, how does a charity work? How does it happen when you start it out as a passion project? And then how do you get it off the ground when you're living in one country and then the actual charity is happening in a completely different country, war-torn, torn to shreds? How do you even get it off the ground and get the funds to the people who need it? So Samea John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
My sister actually sent me a link to your IG account saying, check her out because she's this work, because we didn't know who was doing this work, but that fact that someone is on the ground or has contacts on the ground in Afghanistan, providing charitable resources to people who, there are millions of people who need it. So you've got a charity called Srowzar Children, is that correct?
Yes.
What does Srowzar mean?
It basically means gold.
Gold, okay.
Yeah.
Is that passion?
Yeah, so it took me a whole year to actually come up with that, because I was so connected to the whole thing. And I think the whole reason why I started this was because I was on UNICEF website, and they said, there was a whole statement on there's over 2.5 million children who should be going to school. They are not attending schools, either because of where they live, either because of their safety, or most of them were girls not being allowed from the parents. And I totally understand. I totally understand because of the way everything was. And I think that's what hit me really hard. And I actually started funding everything myself at the beginning, just so I could get people to start having a look at what I'm doing. And I started funding a few families every month, where we would meet the children, obviously on the streets, selling as little as plastic bags, shopping bags, a little comb, little lollies, any of those, or shoe polishing. We started meeting them, we started talking to them, and we obviously started sending them home. And the whole purpose of that was so they could actually go home, for us to support their education. And I just think there was nothing better to do than me feeling that, oh my God, I'm actually sending this child to school for his own future, for her own future, for the country's future, for the parents. You always rely on what you do for your kids, then it comes back to you, because then they can actually help you in the future. It's like my dad used to say, you don't just grow a seed for no reason. So and that's how I started it. And even though my dad was focus on your studies, I've got 12 units left. I'm no, I think this is more important right now, but I will focus on my studies as well.
So you're at university at the moment?
Yeah, I actually changed 3 times.
What are you studying?
I'm doing fashion design now.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so you're studying fashion design. How long has this charity Srowzar Children been going on for?
I think 2 years now.
2 years.
It's going to be 2 years, towards the end of this year, actually.
Okay, so You're on the UNICEF site, you're reading statistics about 25 or 2.5 million kids in Afghanistan are not able to attend school. You funded, you start, now you're in Australia, you live in Sydney, Australia.
Yes.
But how are you now taking money and sending it to, who is on the ground that is helping you distribute money?
My family, so it's my uncle.
Okay, so your uncle actually takes the money that you send him, and he's on the ground giving it to the people who he knows or he sees is going to benefit from it.
Yes, so what we do is I do send money overseas, and after that he takes over, and then he funds the families that we've been wanting to help from the past few months. And some of the families we do tend to actually give food to if they're in a desperate need. And then that way, as soon as people see that, these families, they still need help, then we actually collect more funds, then we just keep sending. The whole process is we obviously collect the money, and then it gets to like a certain amount. It's like, for example, it's like $2,000. And then we send that over so that way we can find every single family that we possibly can. And that goes for like every month. So it's literally every month.
Okay. What days of the month do you usually send money? Like, is it a specific time? Is it just to keep the routine happening? Or is it just whenever the funds get to a certain amount?
Not really that. I actually basically sometimes wait for when the rate is pretty high. Okay. So the transfer, like if I was to say $1 is 59 today, mostly I look at it on Fridays. And then if it's 59, then I'm like, okay, today's a good time. Okay, I'll just send it from my own money. And then once I get that, then I can have that. So I just send it over, and then that way we can have more money and we can obviously feed more families.
Inshallah. So basically you started off funding this yourself, sending money off to your uncle. Your uncle was finding people to give it to. At what point did you decide that you wanted to build a broader audience and get more people involved to donate?
At a point when I saw that I don't think we're doing enough. I think that's what was getting to me really bad, because I was like, we are sitting here. I know like every single family in Australia can most likely fund a family overseas. And I know for a fact you can do that, because there's like all this money that we can go and work for, but that they don't have that. Like overseas, if someone was to go work 8 to 5 every single day, you know how much they get paid? They get paid 8,000 Afghani, which is like 150 Australian dollars. They live off that money for a whole month. Let alone their expenses, like for the medical bills, for like school, or like the transport. But half of the money probably just takes over the transport. So it's pretty hard. And I just don't know. I think I was just so connected. I think I'm just really connected like my dad was. I used to look at him, and then I was like, I got to do it. They're my people. I'm from that country. I belong to those people. And I've always been planning to go back, but I can't go back anymore. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Samea. Were you born in Afghanistan, or were you born?
I was.
Great. So at what age did you migrate to Australia?
I think I was like 10, pretty young.
Okay, so you remember, that's because I was 1 when I left, so I have zero memory of Afghanistan. I remember being a refugee, but I don't recall memories. So in Afghanistan, when you were there by the age of 10, like, was the poverty, there's always been poverty, but was the poverty just as much as it is today?
No. So when we came to Australia, that's when we had America. I think they had only been there for like a few years. So the other day I was just laying down. I'm like, oh my God, I just remembered this. I remember, and I was like, so all of a sudden I had never known what the Americans looked like, what they brought with them, what they looked like, what they dressed up in, because at that age you're not interested in watching news. One day I see this big ass tank parked in front of our house, and then we obviously were excited to see what the hell was happening. So I go outside, and then we're just like, I don't know if I was shocked. I don't know how I felt when I saw them, but they started handing out these little boxes of crayons, like color pencils.
Really?
Yeah, they actually did that. So I was really confused. And no, I wasn't confused because, oh my God, they're bad people or anything. At that age, you don't really know. You don't know. And then we didn't see, there wasn't like what was happening, like what's happening from the past few years. There wasn't that many explosions, because I think that's when Hamid Karzai was actually running the country. And there wasn't any of that. But I was just confused. I'm like, who are these people? Like, why are they in my country? They don't look like us. It was all of that. And then my sister yesterday, she's like, oh, do you remember how they run my foot over with a tire?
Oh,
I know. And
that's funny. That's funny.
It's funny. She's like, no one cared about me.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. There's so many other problems, but the least of the problems. You'll live. You'll live.
And then I was just looking at her, I'm like, oh, you actually remembered that, because I reminded her of the crayons. But now that I'm thinking, like, what the hell was I going to do with those crayons? I wasn't really into any of that. All of that was unwanted. I mean, yes, I'm in Australia, but in all honesty, no one can come in and fix their country if you don't fix it yourself. It's like if you have household problems, I mean, you can't have someone else from the outside to come and fix your problems because you got to fix it yourself. No one can force you to talk to someone just because you don't want to talk to them. And that's what's happening, and that's what was happening.
So when you witnessed Americans coming in with their tanks and giving you crayons, you didn't find that there was the work that they did really alleviated or helped the poverty that was happening in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I don't think that was actually helping anyone. Giving out crayons was just what a good gesture in what way? So I mean, it was nice of them, but I don't know how long that actually lasted because I don't know. It was, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I can't believe I actually remembered that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I just remembered it now, like 2 days ago.
And it's just really interesting that you say that, because a lot of Afghans who have left Afghanistan, who escaped, really, that's what the word is, escaped. Everyone escaped. It's very confronting right now, because you are being given back the memories that you had back then, living in the fear, living in the uncertainty, which has just been exacerbated. The current situation in Afghanistan at the moment. But in terms of how does your uncle, I mean, I know that pre-Taliban, so yesterday the Taliban completely now have 100% access of Afghanistan, but if I can just take you back to prior to yesterday, before the Taliban had full control and we still had a presidency, how did your uncle go? So is it solely your uncle that's distributing money or food or tents? Is he the only one doing that on the ground?
Right now, because of what's happening, we actually have over 7 people helping us, and that's all family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they get a cut for helping out?
No, but I was saying that obviously I'll pay them at the end. No, not from like the money that we're collecting. I'm like, just wait until everything is over, which is not going to be over. I'm telling you. So when my uncle went, I was like, when I heard that that's what was happening, I'm like, you need to go there. I mean, I live in Australia. I can't sleep in the park. I cannot sleep in the bloody park. So how are these people actually like staying in that park, you know, like especially in Afghanistan? And he said there's like so many young boys surrounded by the entire park. Then they were just staring at the girls just to have a view of what they were doing. And honestly, because a lot of the people my age overseas, they haven't seen any of that either. They didn't know what Taliban were actually like. So I don't really blame the new generations that are actually growing up. And so he said, we need to go there. And then when he went the next day, I was just like, oh, I can't. I'm telling you, Rita, that I cried every night. I was like to my mom, like, you know, the way my dad's death actually hit me, this is hitting me the same way. And I was crying every night. I was waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and I'm like, what can I even do? I actually couldn't do much. I mean, we live in Australia. We think we're in peace. We're not in peace here. Like our heart, we're not in peace. Our brains are like, we're traumatized. Not because of what, but it's like my people, they are people, they're human beings. They're innocent people, and no one deserves to go through any of that. I was like to my mom, I didn't speak to my family for like a few good days. I was so depressed, and we're in a lockdown. So everything was just like, I can't even go sit with anyone. I can't even go anywhere. The only thing you could do is just like go for a stupid walk, the same walk that you actually go for nearly every day. I was like to my mom, I don't even know how to take it anymore. Like, I just don't even want to live anymore, because the way those kids were at the park, I'm like, I wish I could help them every single day, but then you can't really. And while everyone else was distributing food and stuff, I took over the tents. I'm like, if I can't live in a park without a tent, in Australia, these people can't live in a park in Afghanistan without a tent. They need their privacy. We have distributed over 200 tents to like 200 families.
So from Australia to Afghanistan?
No. Like, so we have tents in Afghanistan. Like, they're not that good, but just for temporary purposes, I think it was really good. I wish we could send tents, but tents over here are like so pricey anyways.
Yeah, and plus the cost of shipping and all that.
Yeah, it's too much, especially when you're sending a little thing to Afghanistan, like over $50. So imagine sending a tent. But we went on with tents. I was like, even though a lot of people are like, oh no, don't go with tents. I'm like, you can't tell me what I should be doing. I know how I'm going to feel to actually be in that position, because I do a lot of camping. My family loves camping. And I was like, I can't sleep in a tent with a mattress for more than a day, for more than a night. So how are these people going to do it? And we went ahead with tents. We went ahead with like dry fruits, fresh food. Like we actually went and took them apples, bananas. I'm like, this is what they need. They are not intaking enough nutritions right now.
Yeah. And just for our audience's sake, sorry to cut you off, Samea, because when you say park, if people don't know that once the Taliban entered Afghanistan, people were just panic driven. They left their homes wherever they were in the countryside, and then they all somehow transported themselves either by foot or by bus or some way to Kabul, which is the capital. And there is a park in Kabul, and they had nowhere to go, but thinking that if they stayed in Kabul, at least they would be safe, because surely the government won't topple down. And their worst nightmares came true. The government did depart the country, the president, and so therefore they were just left with no money for transport to go back home, no money for food. They literally had the clothes off on their back. And so that's what Samea is talking about, is that trying to get the tents for these people who have just come in a park because they've got nowhere else to go. I mean, they were trying to save their life, literally, and in doing so.
Because it started off from Kandahar. And I think the war was like, the army was obviously like being resistant towards what's happening, and that's why people started to lose their homes, started running away from their homes. A lot of the families, they didn't even actually have shoes.
Yes.
I mean, think about it. Like, how is this even happening in 2021? And when I tell you that we have actually sent 3 buses back home, okay, 3 whole coaches. When I say coaches, 25, 26 families fit in one coach. And the first bus, I feel bad that I should have given them more, but my money is not going to do anything for them. It's just like 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But even that, like, we gave them 10,000 Afghani and we got them onto the bus. We obviously covered the cost for the buses as well and sent them home. But how do I know how they are after this? Most of these people lost their businesses. Their businesses were actually burned down. And I don't know, a lot of the families actually wanted to stay in Kabul, but it's so hard to get rent. It's not easy.
Ah, yeah, of course, it's the capital city. It's expensive. But I'm curious to know, Samea, like, and of course, so many of them would have gone back, and God only knows if they can get out and get any food. Because I know that in Afghanistan, now that the Taliban are in, you cannot leave your house without a chaperone. So for widows who don't have a male companion, I don't know what they're going to do. People who don't have a father, a brother, a husband, a son. If you're a female and you live alone, you cannot leave the house alone.
Yeah, no, you can't. You can't. And I think that's what's bothering most of the females. And I mean, we live in Australia, we can get out, we can go anywhere, but I just don't even know how to say it anymore. Like, my cousins back home, they're like where we don't know what to do. Our dreams are shattered.
Yeah. And you were saying to me before the interview, your cousins actually work at the university.
Yeah, they teach at the universities. They actually work as a really high posts. And right now, everyone's concerned about their safety. And I would be as well. Some people are like, oh, well, why didn't you go back and live there? I'm like, excuse me, I don't want to have unlawful death. No way. Like, a death that no one knows how to answer to it. Like, who's going to stand up for my death? Like, no. No one wants that. And I don't want that happening to anyone either. So, like, these families that we're sending back, I spoke to one of the widow. I'm like, because she said she doesn't have a husband. So some families I did secure spots for. So, like, we do have, like, if my auntie, like, she's got a double story, I'm like, look, I'm going to rent this from you, but we're not showing that on my Instagram page, only because I don't think it's actually safe.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm concerned for their safety. And some people are like, can you give me the phone numbers? I'm like, I'm sorry, just run through my charity, whatever you want. But there's going to be no phone numbers given. There's going to be no addresses given, because it is not safe. And her being a widow with 7 kids, 7 children. And I was like, no. So we're just securing, like, some rental spots for some families, because they're like, we don't have anywhere to go to.
So when you say, to go back to the process of the charity, that there is seven kids of a widow, does your uncle send you names, or does he just send you numbers of people, 3 women to 10 children, for you to be able to, here in Australia, be able to calculate the numbers and how much you can send? Is that what goes on?
I actually connect with the families myself. So this,
how do you get in contact with the families? Because do they have mobile phones?
so they do have the little button phones.
Button phone.
Most of the women, they have the button phones.
Okay.
So I have all of their numbers. I'm telling you, I've been calling so much that every month, or like from the past 3 months, my phone bill goes over $200. Yeah, like it's so bad, because Vodafone used to have 3 minutes to Afghanistan, but then that actually cut off 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Right.
So that kind of like pisses me off. And then WhatsApp, most of the families don't have it, they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I actually try to connect with them myself.
Okay.
And sometimes if they need that extra help, then I tell the person that's sponsoring that family, I'm like, look, this is what they're struggling with. Would you be able to spare like some more money for this month or next month? Some of my sponsors are amazing. Actually, most of them are amazing, because when it's like Eid, or like when it's winter coming, and when I say like these families don't have clothes, they actually want to spend extra. They are like, okay, then I'm going to transfer this much. And then it just stays at that limit. That money, like if someone's giving me like 150 a month, it just stays like that, or like 200 or 250.
Okay. So Samea, explain to me if someone's listening to this, because I was having a conversation just yesterday, and they asked me, who am I having on the podcast? And I said, there's a lady who's got a charity that runs it from Sydney, but the charity is in actually Afghanistan. And she said to me, well, I don't think that can work. I don't know how she's getting money there, because the banks are backed up. You can't access the bank. The people on the ground in Afghanistan cannot withdraw their money. Yeah. So she was questioning it, thinking, so I want to, for someone who's thinking, how can this possibly be? Can you give us a clear understanding of, from the moment someone donates and it lands in the account, in your account, what is the step-by-step process that happens from the time that you're calling them, being in contact with them, to the moment you're handing your uncle the money, to them purchasing, to get it to the person? Please tell us what's going on in the process, so we are clear on that.
Okay, so we did go through the crisis of not being able to send money for 3 days when the Taliban took over. I mean, everyone just shut down for their own safety. So people don't start looting the shops or the money or like their banks. And what we do is, in advance, I do have like $2,000 sitting there. So like for emergency, I didn't know this day was going to come. So we had that. And then what we did was, when I first started this, I actually started a contract with one of the shopkeepers where I said, even if we don't have money, I still want you to lend me the food, and obviously we'll get the money at the end. So there's 2 contracts we have, where one's for the wholesaler and one's just for a normal shop. And they, as soon as I ring them, or like my uncle just goes over and then he's got the food. So we do not have any issues with supplying them food, because money we can transfer at any time. Okay. And what we did was, we did borrow money as well from family overseas. I was like, oh, you guys are not going anywhere. There's no flights. So let me just borrow the money and make a good thing of it. And they were really nice about it. So this is what happens. The process is, Western Union doesn't work anymore. MoneyGram doesn't work anymore. I've never used Western Union. I think they just charge too much. And what we say, how that word hawala, transfer. So we know someone that can actually send our money overseas for us, and he doesn't even charge me. So like, it's so nice of him. He used to charge me, but now he's like, I think I need to stop charging you.
So you have your own contact who does that?
Yes. So I just ring him, or I message him like, this is the amount of money I want you to send today. I will tell him in the morning, and then my uncle can pick it up. So he sends it over, and we did have issues with that for 2 days as well. He's like, it's just not safe for us to open up our shop because we're scared like someone just come and take all the money from us. And we do that. And then as soon as the money gets there, sometimes what we do is, before the money even gets there, we do distribute foods to the families, because we don't want to wait on it. We're like, okay, so these families don't have food, give it to them. Once the money comes over, then we can give it to the shopkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah. So
at what point do you get access to their contact details?
As soon as my uncle actually goes over, he sends me every video. I have so many videos. I have so many photos. Most of it I don't really share, because I just think okay, so when I have sponsors, if they send me money, they're like, okay, I want this 10,000 to go to this family. What I do is we make a video of that, and that video just goes to that person.
Yeah.
So they know that the money went to them.
Yeah.
And the photos and videos I get as soon as my uncle actually visits them on that day. And I'm eagerly waiting every single day. I'm like, oh, come on, just send it.
Yeah.
The internet in Afghanistan is not really that good either. So as soon as he sends it over, then I go through all the videos, all the photos, and I decide which one I should be uploading onto the internet.
Okay. And then where you upload it is on your Instagram account. And for those who would like to check it out, it's Srowzar Children, and it's on Instagram, and I'll put it in the show notes so someone can just, who's reading the show notes, can click on it and just be taken to it straight away. So basically that's what goes on. When your uncle goes, he gets their contact details of the individuals who need the resources or the charitable work, and then that's where you get in contact with them.
Yes.
And what conversation are you having with these? Just what do you need? Where are you? What is that? What's going on in the conversations?
With the families?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm very emotional when I just get so emotional when I speak to them. So when I am speaking to them, I do ask them how they are, or like, what is their situation, the amount of children they have, are they renting, or is the house owned by themselves?
Oh.
So as soon as I know that it's their own house, then I think about, okay, if this is their own house, then maybe they can start something little within their own house. We have worked on one of the families that I've got. So the husband was in army, and he obviously passed away, I think 3 years ago. And I've been working to open up a shop for them from their own house. So that way, Rita, as much as I want to help these families, at the end of the day, I don't want them to wait on me. I want them to be independent. I want them to make their own money so they know like how to actually make it, instead of like waiting on someone. Oh, we're so hungry, we missed out on this day, we need to get food. So that's my second thing what I've been working on. People that have their own houses, we are actually planning to build shops for them, just like a little shop front so the son can go and work. So we have started on one of them, but because Taliban took over, we just haven't finished the work. It's not, my uncle's like, I'm not scared of them. Okay, so when I talk to them, they kind of give me like some hope. He's like, I'm telling you, you don't understand how safe I am right now, like, or how safe I'm feeling right now.
Really?
Yeah. He's like, my phone, no one is snatching it off me. My bags, I've got it on me. In that sense, everything is good. He's like, no one is stealing from you. Guys are not staring at girls. There's no singing. Like, I remember when I went to Afghanistan, these people, the way they would sing at you, or like the way they would wink at you and like blow their whistles.
Oh.
So there's none of that anymore. Thank God there's none of that. But the worst part is just like the education part and the freedom for women.
Okay. So pre-Taliban, your uncle was able to go. Now post-Taliban, I know it's only been a few days, but your uncle feels safe to go and actually distribute.
Yeah.
Okay,
Before that, he there's been so many people that actually have been killed just because they've been on the phone. So people would actually come and snatch their phones, actually get them off their motorbikes and stuff like that. So he's like, that's that one thing, I feel relieved, so I can speak to you over the phone whenever, like wherever I am. So I think that's what he was probably talking about.
That's amazing. You know, I was thinking, just on a side note here, Samea, I was thinking about obviously the women in Afghanistan and the Taliban. You know, I just feel like not being able to go and get educated or to go to work or be out of the house. I think by the same token, when you're around men who are not educated or do not understand, I just think there's a protection for women at the moment, not forever, but just to be in the house, because you don't know the level of morality of people who are just, you know, with guns and walking around. Like there's one of the Taliban, and I'm not defending Taliban, I'm just speaking for the women's situation, that he said, we just need to educate the soldiers, which was their Taliban, that these are women and the fact that how they should conduct themselves.
Yeah.
So that there's, you know what, do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
there's a different way to conduct yourself with a female. And so for their protection, by the time that we get them up and running, we just want them to be at home. That's what one of them said. I'm not saying that's the right, or I'm just saying I appreciate that they're looking at it from that angle, and God willing that they keep to it and that they let them know how to actually interact with them so they can leave the house, so they can earn a living and they can get educated. But I just think, like you were saying before, someone's on the phone, you could get killed for your mobile phone.
Yeah.
It would be worse for a female.
And I know, I mean, I'm not going to defend them because at the moment I'm just so angry at them, the whole thing. Yeah, but I know, like, they're saying it's just not safe for them to come out because you just don't know. Yeah. But then at the same time, what makes me so angry is then why are these people at the front? Like, why are they even like dealing with, especially like Kabul. Kabul is such a big city. When I tell you, when you walk around the streets, there's like so many people. There are so many people, and the fact that they're not trained properly, like, that's their fault.
Yeah, of course.
And I understand them. Like, okay, then send people that are trained. But then there's some that are actually speaking very nicely. Yeah. I've
seen videos of some of them who are just very well spoken, and it just doesn't feel.
But then, you know what I was thinking? The entire attention is on Kabul right now. Yeah. They have sent all the educated ones, all the ones that can actually speak to people are in Kabul.
It's so it's things to develop at the moment, but God, it's an unfolding situation. Now, I know that you've got a sewing school for the females in Afghanistan. How is that? Has that been closed at the moment?
It was closed because of COVID-19, but we have actually started operating again.
Where are you allowed to tell me where that's located, or just for security reasons you want to keep that low?
So what I'm focusing on right now is the city has everything. We're in, like, where I'm focusing, it's actually in a village where we have people that are at the elder one we have is like a 48. She's a widow. She really wants to learn. And so what we're doing is we're just providing them with the skills that they can actually use even for their own family, for their own children. This one is in a village, and we are thinking about opening something very, very, very big in the same village, only because it's pretty far from the city. People are not going to actually travel. And just to avoid traveling for like over 15-20 minutes, so we're going to go back and build something else there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not sure what it's going to be, but I just really want to focus on women.
Yeah.
And I just want to focus on girls that are going to finish their studies after year 12, then they can actually go do something else after year 12. They can learn something new, so they can actually come back and work with us. And most of our graduates, as soon as like they're graduating the last week, we do send them home with fabrics for their take-home exam, and then we use those clothes for the children.
Wow.
So, like, yeah, I'm not trying, like, I wasn't being selfish or anything. I'm like, look, it's your exam, make me clothes, and it's done. So then we take over the clothes, and then we just hand them out to people for Eid, or like if it's not during Eid, then it's just like given to the families that we're supporting, or like anyone that comes, then we come across.
Okay. Yeah. So that's amazing. I mean, what other skills do you think, other than sewing, would be helpful for people if the resources could be built? Like, other than sewing, is there any other skill that anyone's shown interest or that you know would be of benefit?
I was thinking about bakery. Like, baking would be something really, really, really. It's not really big in Afghanistan, and there's nothing with bakery where I'm actually focusing on. So maybe it could either be run by women, or just so we could actually bring in 10 people to come and work with us, so they can financially support themselves and their families, or even like if we have kids over the age of 14 come in and work and then go to school as well on part-time basis. I literally just want the culture we have here within a company, I actually want to kind of transform that, or like transfer that back to Afghanistan, so people know how we're living. I mean, I started work at the age of 14, so you're not too little. As long as you can go and study, 14 is the best and the best age for you to actually go to work.
I love that. So is this a full-time, or is it a side passion for you, a part-time side passion?
I think it's becoming full-time now.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
time for anyone. So like when I have my friends messaging me, thank God it's COVID-19, because I don't think I would be able to go out as well. And I think it's becoming full time, and I don't really mind it.
Yeah.
I'm
So
always
how much, sorry,
yeah.
how much time are you, so because it's becoming full time, because just the need has increased, just someone who is listening to this and thinking, you know, I would like to start a charity, base it in the country that I'm in, but to give it the resources somewhere else, does the charity need to be registered for that to happen?
I only just did that now. So
Oh,
I only just applied for it 2 days ago.
okay.
When I first started, when I spoke to ACNC, they said if we're not raising over like 50 or like over 30 a year, there isn't really a need.
$1,000, is that?
1,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So now that I was looking, I was like, I think it's the best time because we're getting big charities, like we're getting people to transfer big money. Then I'm like, maybe they can actually tax deduct it. So that way it's better for them and it's better for us as well. But yeah, we are going to be registered soon. I'm actually really happy. I'm stress free as well. You know, so it's only because just to avoid those extra dramas that are actually going to come up.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
yeah, and it's to safeguard you at the end of the day. It's to safeguard you. So currently, are there any admin costs or any costs that, you know, so for people that are, because this is the thing, Samia, there's so many charities that are frauds. They act as charities, but they're not. And especially when things such as the situation in Afghanistan emerges, then these things come out of the woodwork, you know, people who are supposed to be charitable, but really are not being charitable. And that's why I've wanted you on the podcast, so that we can see, open up the complete hatchet of how you would function with it, how you actually proceed with the charity. And that's why my question is, are there admin fees so that people are completely clear?
there's no admin fees.
At all?
No, there isn't any admin fees, only because why would I take away from people that are actually in need? And I don't think I can do that. But yes, if I do want to help anyone, like even if someone's like coming in and helping us for a day or two, that goes out of my pocket.
Okay.
I just don't want to add any admin fee to what we're raising, and I will never do it. And I just hope when this continues for like 50, 60, 70 years, I hope my kids don't do that, because I do want this to actually last. And for this to actually last, I need to focusing on our future generations in Afghanistan. And that will be to actually get them to do things, learn things, have skills, have just like for their own future. I mean, if I'm going to get educated, it's good for me and my children, because they're going to have a mother that's educated, you know. So I think that's what my main focus is. Even though like I've sponsored these families every month, I don't feel good about that. I'm just like, why? Like I'm only just giving them food. I mean, food is a necessity, food is important, but I want them to stand on their own feet. That, I think that's my main purpose.
Yeah.
And my family backing me up every single time, their ideas and everything, is probably like one of the best things I've actually come across.
I love that. So what makes Srowzar Children, the charity that you run, different from any other charity that anyone would donate to send funds to Afghanistan? What makes you different, better, effective? Why you and not another charity?
We're not always about photos or videos. We don't actually have someone else going with us doing, I know a lot of charities, they've got like another person holding the camera, or I just want my uncle to do everything by himself. I want him to, I was telling him, he's like, oh, but why don't we just I'm like, no, I don't want to pay anyone. Even if that money coming out of my pocket, I want that to go towards the families. My main focus isn't about my work, like seeing by other people, like showing to other people. I think it's because I'm so connected, like from my heart, that I actually just want to help them in a way that they can learn something. I want them to I want them to get educated. Even like I have a student who wanted to sit for her year 12 exam again. And I'm like, yes, why not? If she wants to go to uni, that's good for us, and that's good for her future, and that's good for Afghanistan. So I think for us, our focus isn't just feeding families. Our focus was, and it still is, and it still will be, to actually send children to school. And most of the families, we do check up on them only because when we tell them the only way we're going to help them, help you every month, is if you were to send your daughter and your sons to school. And if we did find a family that actually didn't, we went up to them. I was like to my uncle, I'm like, I do not care. the whole purpose of this is because I want their kids to go to school. And there we go. And then she started, and I was like to her, I'm like, for us, it's not about money. It's not about me giving you food. For me, it's me. I feel emotionally upset. Like I just get so sad when I find out that their kids are not going to school. Like one of my cousins, she was so smart. She did really good in her HSC, but after that, she couldn't go to uni because of where she was living. And I was so angry at her dad. I'm like, move to the city, bring her to one of my other cousins' house. She can go to uni from there. But no.
So yeah, that is the reality of it. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, knowing that you guys want to do more, your long-term vision is to actually get people independent, get them skills to be able to be self-sufficient, which is their ultimate dream as well. Nobody wants to get anything from anyone. No one wants to owe, and I mean, everyone wants to be independent. It's the nature of a human being.
I would hate, like Rita, I would hate to rely on anyone.
Yes, exactly.
Like as a girl, as as a woman, I would hate for anyone to feel that they need us. I don't want them to feel like that. And that's because I wouldn't want to feel like that. If I don't want to feel like that, I don't want them to feel like that. And if I'm thinking about their future, I want them to go to school and do all of that. I think that's what we're about. I know a lot of charities have picked up that from us, and I'm glad that they have, because I can see that they have done it. And I feel happy. I'm like, look, they are doing it because I have done it, because I am doing it. For me, it's not about giving them food. For me, it's about them learning something. I want them to go to school. I'm just so passionate that they should be going to school. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, why not? Like, why shouldn't they be going to school every single day? The sad part is the schools only go for like 4 hours.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you knew, but there's like 3 sessions. There's like 3 sessions per day, unless you go to a private school or like another school that's supported by like the government, like properly, then you go to school for a full day.
So what are the chances? I know you said the internet, I mean, obviously there's not great internet connection in Afghanistan, but what are the chances for online learning where someone could actually teach from Australia, and then like, is that a possibility, or is just the internet connection would just not allow that?
The internet's actually, I don't think the internet's going to allow that. I mean, you can't even speak on WhatsApp. It goes up, like it just cuts down, and then let alone being on a video with them. It gets really frustrated. I get really frustrated when I'm like, okay, I want to see these families. I want to see them. I want to see, like, so my sewing school, I do not upload any of the photos. And I think it's because I'm just funding it myself and I don't need to show it to anyone. But I do upload what work they do, or like how much they've actually improved compared to the first week.
Yeah. But I also think for security purposes, I think it's important to keep the anonymity of the people and the location.
Yeah. And no one knows where my school is located. So it's not a school. I've just hired like this huge room from someone's house, and I renovated it, and I had someone actually be so nice about it. They actually paid for the entire sewing machines. Yeah. Wow. She's from UK. She funded all my sewing machines, and we're just doing it. Like,
did you put the word out saying, this is the dream I've got, and then someone said, hey, look, I want to add to the dream? Oh, wow.
I posted on my story. I'm like, I can't believe this. I was actually so happy.
Wow, that's amazing. And then the sewing teacher, she's actually in Afghanistan, obviously, like she's teaching face to face.
I've got 3 teachers. So when we first said that we're gonna start, I actually thought I wouldn't even have that many people come. But then I had over 90 women show up. Wow. Over 90. So the first session when we did, I was like, we're only new to this. Even though 2 of my teachers, they are actually well experienced, because they've actually taught at one of the American sewing. They had it for like I don't know what it was for, but they did some sort of project where they hired like all these girls to teach at their schools.
Right.
2 of them are educated and they know how to actually teach them. They're full show it. The way we're learning it here, that's how we're teaching it there. Right. Whiteboard, draw, measurements, everything is on there.
Nice.
So I actually forgot so it started off with 90 girls, like 90. So from the age of 16 until the age of 48. And then we were like, okay, we can't do 90 for the first time. Took in 18 of them. And then the second
Oh,
and the
how
third,
hard. Oh my God.
I know, but I didn't. I wanted to give them the quality.
Yes, no, no. Look, I
Yeah.
understand. I just,
Yeah.
how do you, no, how do you do that?
Yes, I was like, even though they were like, oh no, just let us come, and I'm like, no, this is not gonna how it's going to work. I want you guys to learn properly. I don't want to just come in and be like left behind or left out, that you didn't teach properly or you didn't learn properly. So we only took 18 for the first one and 27. So we're like in a third year now.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 of them are graduated already. This graduation ceremony didn't go ahead because of COVID-19. And we're going to do that with this, like with this other class.
I love that. And so the teachers that you found to actually teach, the 3 teachers, that's through your uncle. He sourced them.
I sourced them myself.
How did you source them here in Australia?
Because I have been back and forth. Like when I say back and forth, I've been there like 6 times, nearly every second year, every year. And I have been to universities with my cousins. I've actually seen enough. And then we had, I think, 5 people to pick from. And then even though like family and stuff, like, how you're like, oh, the family wants, if you don't hire the family, what happens? They don't like you anymore. And then I'm like, no, I was like, I'm going to pick myself. I want these girls to actually learn everything properly, instead of just having someone that I know who doesn't know how to actually teach.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. It's just, it's amazing. I absolutely find what you're doing incredible. I wanted to also just ask you, the fact that the distribution, it's just your uncle at the moment, this is becoming your full-time passion project. For someone who's listening to this and thinking, I'd like to do what you do, but how can I possibly support myself, and then also start a charity that will need the person's own funding before it takes off and other people start. So what are you doing to balance that, to provide income for yourself to live, and then also be able to fund, like, for example, the sewing school? Like, how are you actually balancing? What are you doing? Do you have another job? Are you is it because you can live with mum that allows you to do that? Like, what is it that I can see someone else seeing you so that they can plan their lifestyle around it?
It's not easy. I mean, some people think that running a charity is easy. It's actually so hard. But when I say full-time, I could be running my charity full-time and working still. So now I'm going to start working with my older brother, who's an immigration lawyer, and both of my siblings are solicitors.
Fantastic timing.
So they've offered me, I'm like, look, you should be happy that I'm working with you. And it's work from home, so I don't mind it. And I'm gonna start with them. Maybe I'll change my degree again, maybe not, because I really want to change it, only because I just want to go to those detention centers and bring out all those Afghans that needs to be out. So it's going to be hard, but yeah, you can support yourself. I mean, sometimes when I do my charity work, when the whole Taliban took over, it was like 11 hours a day. 11 hours a day. It's not easy. It's so hard. You're just glued to your phone and you're watching the news. You don't know what's happening. And then you're speaking to people overseas. They're like, oh, it's so quiet. I'm like, this is not the kind of peace you want.
Yeah.
This is dangerous peace, because you don't know what's going to happen. But you can work. I mean, you can't be running a charity where you're not getting paid and then not having a job. How are you going to support yourself? And you're thinking about supporting others.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to support yourself, and then so you don't have that stress level.
So you'd recommend to have a job, let that fund you, and so that if you want to take out of that, then you can.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you don't have a job, if you can't support your own self, how are you going to support other families? How are you going to even be able to like pay your bills? So it's not easy. You have to work. You can't just like not go to work and then sit on the phone the whole time.
Which would be easy to do, because like your heartstrings are pulling because of the situation is just unfolding before our eyes on TV.
Yeah.
And on social media. Now, are you on any other social that you share your work other than Instagram, or is it just on Instagram?
I am on TikTok, but not quite often. And I am on Facebook as well.
All right, fantastic. Yeah. And just the question that you mentioned before, that your dad, may God rest his soul, passed away.
Yeah.
Is that in Afghanistan?
No, he passed away. His I hate the month of August. Now I hate it even more. So he actually passed away 2 years ago, 29th, he passed away on the 28th of August. And we couldn't, he died from a heart attack. But I was like to my mum, I'm so glad he didn't get to see this day again. I mean, for someone to say that, you have to have such a big heart, because you're like, you would wish for your dad to be here, but then at the same time, you don't want him to be here, because look at what we're going through. You know, I wonder what my dad would have gone through. You know, it's hard. And it did, I'm telling you, it hit me so hard. My entire family, I think not just me, every single Afghan.
And it was a standstill. It literally felt like a standstill. Like I felt, it was because I live in Canberra. It was cold. The day was just so cold, and I was sitting in front of the heater, and literally, I didn't know. There was just guilt that just overwhelmed. You know, because I'm here. I've got the blessing of being here. There are literally people like in just panic-stricken mode, and you cannot fathom what has happened. And I mean, there's so many emotions that come up. I mean, I'm not even explaining it properly, but there was like, it was just, I was just literally frozen, really. Like, I just didn't, is this real? Like,
you weren't expecting it. Like, I don't think any of us was actually expecting it. Because even like until they didn't take over like Kabul, I was like, yeah, these piece of idiots are not going to take over. But then it was already done, Rita. Like, I remember when we were talking about it, as soon as we saw the whole Doha thing, I was just like, we're sold out. Like, we're done.
Well, I mean, Ahmad Massoud, who is the son of Ahmad Shah Massoud, who is leading a resistance in the Panjshir.
But is he actually?
Is he? Well, I mean, he's not. You
I don't think anyone can actually resist what's happening right now.
Well, not fighting, but just take it. He's in Panjshir, and he's just there as an alternative, and he's trying to, with diplomacy, get access and engage with the Taliban. That's from his speeches and his interviews. But what's remarkable is what he said in one of his interviews was that, and I believe it's very true, that the Taliban really are thirsty for international recognition. And so if America, if Canada, if Australia, if the international powers that be give recognition to a government that is just appeared straight away, that is going to give them a legitimacy. And so what we are looking at is, are other international countries going to give the Taliban, you know, the right of government and look up to them as a real justifiable governing body in Afghanistan? And that's where the rubber will meet the road, more so than ever, because past the last time they came, they didn't have that. And this is really what they're looking for, is an international, I guess, embrace from the.
I think in a way, like, we don't know, but I think they already have that.
You think they've got that?
Yeah, I mean, the way things are going, the way all these media, like all the Al Jazeera, like all these people are in Afghanistan for what? I mean, Taliban's have been trending from the past few weeks. They're not just trending for no reason, because these big countries, they want them to be trending. And I have a feeling it will, like, they will get recognized. And in a way, I just think that economy will actually boost for Afghanistan for the first time compared to before.
I hope so. I really, you know, they say that the first casualty of war is the truth. And I really believe the truth of it is in the hearts of the person who is worked their whole life, who is that innocent one. That's who holds the truth.
Yeah.
And I pray to God Almighty that they are given a release of this pressure, this pressure cooker that has been given to them for all their life.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been grown up in war. If you've lived in Afghanistan, you've known nothing but war. And that I pray that if they do succeed, if the Taliban are the ruling body, they, for the sake of the people who live and who've always had to be at the end of the barrel, literally be at the end of the barrel, because for their sake, for it to do well, because it's beyond exhaustion now. Everyone's just beyond exhausted with the situation.
I mean, my mom was telling me when the Taliban actually took over in the 90s, the value for the money dropped. But now it dropped on that day, the day before it dropped, but now we're still sitting on the same amount of transfer. Like you say, if it's $1.59, it's still 59. And I think that's why I was just thinking, I'm like, oh my God, the economy is just going to boost because I have a feeling everyone's just going to recognize these idiots. But and in a way, I was just telling my sister, I'm like, look, if their government is stable and if they can actually run Afghanistan in a good way, then yes, I will go travel next year. I will definitely go travel next year. Not because for them, but for my own self, for my own country, for my own people, I would go.
And to help the economy, you traveling there would actually boost the economy. You know,
Yeah.
somewhere you buy things. No, I absolutely love that. Is there anything that I haven't asked that you feel people would need to know about the charity and what you're doing? Is there anything that hasn't been covered that you could have people rest assured that what your work is legit and helping the people it's the real deal?
I think we actually covered everything, but the only concern I have is that the entire attention is on Kabul.
Yeah.
I just wonder what's actually happening in every other city.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything is just on mute. Everything, I mean, all the news reporters, all the YouTubers, the vloggers, they're all in Kabul. I wonder why, because they don't want to attend, like they don't want people to pay attention on all the other cities. But I did speak to like a few other people, like they see like from Badakhshan, they're like, oh, it's so quiet.
Right.
It's so quiet. In Mazar Sharif, it's actually really quiet. Some people are saying that this is happening, that's happening. And then someone just had like the Black Hawk helicopter, that there was someone hanging down the helicopter. I think a lot of people need to like do their own research on what they need to believe and what not. And then I saw the helicopter, the guy is hanging on a zip line. It's not done by Taliban. I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying that it is hurting us only because some people are actually believing it. I was like to my friend, I'm like, why the hell would you believe that? That's not true. These people can't even fly a helicopter yet. They can't. I'm like, they need the skills and they don't have the skills yet. So this didn't happen. That's from like something, like it's from somewhere else. So she's like, yeah, but you know this. I'm like, it's not, relax. But one more thing I do want Australia to actually do is be more involved. You know, like I want them to be more involved in like bringing more people here. You know, like giving
the 3,000 person quota that the immigration minister said. Do you think, I mean, every other country, America and Canada said 20,000, Australia said 3,000.
Yeah.
I think this should be a real clear emphasis to just let the people who are in detention. I mean, you can't go back to Afghanistan. It's proven. It's back now. You can't go back. I just think that people in detention should be given, like, you got to go back. I mean, because they wouldn't be in detention if they were proven as a threat. They're in detention because they're being cleared. They're no threat, but they can now contribute. But for whatever political reason, football, the refugee, you know, topic is it has become. It's just like, you know, it's like plain as the nose on your face. Like they cannot go back. So what are you going to do? Have them in detention for the rest of their life?
I think that's what could be another way of actually doing something good for the Afghans, because my older brother, he does go and visit I mean, now he can't because of COVID-19, but he's helped over like 10 people come out of the detention centers. Wow. Most of them are there for no reason. There's no, like, the people that are actually committing real crimes. When I say real, like real crimes, and then you read about these people, I'm like, why the hell are they even in there? So maybe Scott Morrison can actually focus on that and bring more people out of detention centers so they can actually support their families back home if they've got families overseas. And if he doesn't do any of that, then what's the whole point of him even being, you know, a prime minister? Like, don't even run the country. We're in a stupid lockdown for the past 6 weeks.
Been a long time. But let me ask you this before we wrap up. I wanted to find out, there are a lot of people who have become refugees in Pakistan and Iran. And I was reading that the treatment of Afghan refugees in Pakistan and Iran is, you know, less than nice. And I read a story about a journalist who had gone to Turkey and found three Afghan teenagers working in a dump in Turkey because they have no status. They've got no legal right to work, and so they're working in a dump, in a literal rubbish dump, trying to source food. And the journalist was saying, even though I was in a rubbish dump, these boys managed to find a paper cup and find an unopened bottle of Fanta and pour me a cup, and that's Afghan hospitality. you know, because she had lived in Afghanistan. So my question to you is, do you know with your contacts, yes, there are people in Afghanistan, but there are dire situations even for Afghans who have become refugees as a result. Do you know, are you in communication with any of those people? Do you know what their needs would be and how to get access to food and resources to them?
I know there's a guy with the name of Horace. He recently was going to go to Kabul, but he obviously didn't think that Taliban were going to take over, but then he ended up going to Turkey.
Right.
And what you just told me, he went, and that's what they were literally, I think they were separating plastic and cardboard from each other. I think that's what they were doing. And I'm telling you, okay, don't do anything good in this world, but what's going to happen in the hereafter? Like, how are you going to answer to that? And when he was showing me the way they were living, if you actually go to, I'm going to send you his page on your thing on Instagram, and then you can have a look at it. I was so upset. I'm like, okay, they went through this hard time going from one country to another, come to Turkey, and then that's how they treat them. They are mistreating them. Do you know how much money Turkey is actually making from Afghanistan, from the Afghans? All the wedding dresses, all these dresses, they come from Turkey. And yet they don't have the decency to actually help Afghans. They're not helping Afghans. Like, what the hell is it? Like, they're becoming dumpsters. I mean, what even is that? I didn't even think that stuff even actually existed. Or like, I didn't even think there was like an old man with no family, and the way they were living, they literally had like this little toilet, like a small room, and then you had over like 20, 15 people living in that one little space. So he went, and then he's like, he's gonna work there. I spoke to someone from Iran 2 weeks ago, and then he got into contact with me last week. He was saying that I'm not allowed to work, but this is a contact if you could actually help us. There's like a few families, but every time, the thing with Iran is because they have been sanctioned, I don't know how to actually send them money. So I was like, you need to be clear about how do you want to send the money over, because right now you're not really helping me, and I've been so busy with everything else that, I mean, at least they're safe. I can think about that they're safe, because people in Afghanistan are not safe. Their life can be in danger. They're hungry. There's no jobs. The poverty is going to increase if the economy doesn't actually boost. So
do you do any checks or balances, or I mean, I don't know how you would, I don't think you can, when someone contacts you, to make sure they're a legitimate person who needs help, like outside of Afghanistan, and not someone just taking you for a ride? Like, is there any way you can decipher that?
So with this guy that I'm actually going to send money to, I'm going to send it from my own account, only because I'm like, if he's lying. But right now I'm just kind of like trusting everyone. He did say that they've just come to Iran with his family, and he did send me photos and videos of all these other families as well. And a lot of them are actually waiting in front of the what is it called, UNCHR in Iran, I think in India as well, in front of it. Some are actually sleeping in front of those companies. That's what pisses me off the most, that they actually get the admin costs, they get all the money they need, everyone's donating to them because they're trustworthy, but at the park when we went, none of them were actually there.
Really?
Yeah. They're only, so on the day even when Taliban arrived, we were still delivering, like we were still doing that. But my uncle's like, so UNCHR have their own tents. We did not see any of that. We didn't see that. It's all of us. It's like these little charities that are actually contributing to everything on the ground right now. I haven't seen any.
Is that because you think they couldn't get in and UNHCR couldn't? I mean, sure.
I think they were thinking about their safety. Because when we started off with the park in Saroy Shamali, basically these are the people that actually came from Kunduz, Badakhshan, Kandahar, and Baghlan. I think Kunduz is in Baghlan. And I was like to my uncle, because I gave him names. I'm like, this is what it looks like. Can you see any of these companies there? He said no. They were not there. I know there's Mahbouba's Promise, who's been delivering like food to them every day. And there's Mothers of Afghanistan, who's actually getting people on the buses, giving them money so they can go back home. And then there's us. So we know that we're there. We see each other that we're there, but we're not seeing, we didn't see UNCHR unless they've actually just started doing everything now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that you brought up a really just great 2 examples that you just, the 2 other charities that are working on the ground there. For someone that's listening, why start your own charity and not just join the bandwagon of another charity? Like Mabuba's Promise or Mothers of the other charities.
Afghanistan, yeah.
Yeah, why start your own and why not just add to another one? Why that decision for you?
I think I just wanted to do something of my own.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have minded, but I just wanted to, maybe some people are doing things differently, and I think I have other dreams compared to other people would.
Okay.
So I think my dreams or my path to the charity was taken differently compared to other people would. So for me, it's just, I was planning to go back this year, but I can't even go back. I was actually planning to be hand on hand with building what I needed to build and focus on like bringing more people, like more women out, because now that they're saying only a woman can teach another woman, so now I have to focus on that.
Yeah.
Instead of like opening something that people like, I would have like men come in and work for me, I'd rather have women come and work for me.
Yeah.
So they can still have skills, they can still come to somewhere like they can be safe at and then not have any issues.
Wonderful, inshallah. Thank you for that. So before I wrap up the interview, thank you so much for your time, Samea John. I really appreciate it. I've just got one last segment of the interview, and that's called the rapid fire questions. It's a rapid fire round where I just ask you a few questions, and the first answer is the right answer that comes from your brain. Okay?
Yeah.
So first question is, the hardest part about starting a charity?
Trust of people.
Trusting people. What's the easiest part of starting a charity?
Trust again.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's easy to trust sometimes and it's harder to trust others. Is that what it is?
So if you don't have people's trust, you can't actually do anything with charity.
Okay.
And I think at the beginning, that's what I was struggling with, until I was like, okay, then I'm going to start funding these families myself for people to see what I'm actually doing. And now I have so much trust of everyone.
MashaAllah. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you believe that others think is crazy?
Wanting to go back overseas, even like if I could go like next year at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I would go.
Fantastic. Where would you go if you were invisible?
If I was invisible, I would actually go to Palman.
Yeah.
I would just go live there, because apparently it's not safe to go there. So that's where I would go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you into texting or talking? Which one?
Texting.
A high five to that.
I hate talking on the phone. I think I was enough talking over the phone because my uncle doesn't understand like how to speak in English and stuff. So texting is for everyone else. I do not answer phones. I'm like, text me. Yeah.
And last question, what have you learned in this journey of starting a charity about yourself?
That I could actually, I didn't think I could do it, that I actually am able to do whatever I want to do.
Wow, really? That's the lesson it's taught you, starting a charity?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I think I actually, whatever I used to make, I used to spend it. Like I was like shopaholic, like buying all these clothes, these bags and stuff. But now I'm like, I don't do that anymore. I'm telling you, I actually do not spend extra money on things where I could actually send it overseas and like help with my sewing school.
Nice.
And I feel so good about that.
And so you should. And so thank you, Samea John, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so nervous.
But you did beautifully. You did beautifully. And like I said, I wanted you here because I wanted the situation of Afghanistan is just exploded onto the scene. What you do is so deeply needed. And for anyone who's listening, who thinks charity, who thinks like their heartstrings are being pulled towards a direction, but don't know how to start that passion project of a charity, then I wanted you to come on to explain what you do so others can, if they want to donate, can do so by learning about your process. And if anyone wants to start their own charity, to take a look at your blueprint. And before we go, if someone wants to donate to the kids in Afghanistan, to your sewing school, to providing resources directly on the ground where there's no middle person, there's no admin cuts, how do we go about to donate?
So we are doing everything through PayPal. I think it's easy globally. So anyone can donate through it. And for people in Australia, we've got our bank account details on the one of the posts, which I actually put up every single day, after every 24 hours, only because just to avoid paying that fee on PayPal account. And if there is an amount over like $2,000, I would say they can send that straight to Afghanistan, only because then that way they're not paying for another, like a huge amount for PayPal, and they can just be paying like $15. Yeah.
Okay. So when you say send it straight to Afghanistan, who would they send it to straight to Afghanistan?
All the details are actually on my page.
Oh, okay.
The person that works with me, the money goes to them.
Okay, so I'm going to put it in the show notes. I'm going to put your IG page, and I'm going to put the bank account and PayPal details, so people who feel compelled to want to be able to give a hand, they can do so, inshallah, through your account. So Samea John,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. God guide you. May God protect your work. May God give you the vision that you have, and may be a source of sadaqah jariyah, ongoing charity for you, your kids, and your parents. May God rest your father's soul. Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
And thank you guys for your time.